So for many years, Julien Blanc has been teaching you how to release trauma, how to let go of emotional baggage, how to realize what the inner landscape of your psyche looks like, how it's holding you back, how to cleanse it, and how to become prosperous and joyful and expansive and to crush it in life. And obviously one of the major aspects of this is just to enjoy life more, to be happy, to stop living this weird Groundhog Day where you keep seeking out other people to traumatize you. Life circumstances, occupations, different bonds, different enmeshments that are just re-traumatizing you again and again, living the same horrible life again and again and again, over and over, letting all of that go through many different exercises, and actually ascending and getting to a point where you're much, much happier, but living a better version of Groundhog Day that's going up and up and up, and actually improving, maybe to the point it's not even Groundhog Day, instead of being like yourself and so many of your friends that are just stuck living that same trauma reenactment again and again and again. Okay, so this is a bit of a shock to you. You're like, I've never heard, you're like, I didn't heard that, right? Well, then look up Julien's content, super valuable. You've got to see it. I've actually believed for many years that it's the foundation to everything. It's that important. That's why we've actually collaborated and worked so hard on this for so long. But in this video, what we want to do is we're going to take a little bit of an assumption that you've learned this from Julien over the years. If you haven't, hey, get caught up immediately. You got to do it. It's going to help your life. But we want to take the assumption that you've been working on this, and we want to get you to kind of that level 2. What is that next level application of all this release work that you've been doing? And what we're going to explain in this video is that as you begin releasing, what's going to happen is you're going to free up all this mental bandwidth. All of this negativity and heaviness and contraction in your head is just going to become this beautiful, present blank slate. And all of a sudden, from that standpoint, you're going to become a lot more socially aware. You're going to have what's called a higher social IQ, or higher social skills. You're going to have a higher social EQ, right? A social emotional intelligence. And you're going to have a higher emotional intelligence. And what's going to wind up happening is you're going to learn how to show up better with other people and how to own your space. So that's what we want to do. We want to kind of show you that next level, that level 2. As we're sitting up here in Dallas, Texas, we shot a lot of amazing videos up here. We actually just came off a killer seminar that we did here. We just did a free event. By the way, we're doing free events again. As long as we can do them, we're doing them. Click the link below if you want to come to one of those free events. We had an amazing time yesterday. And by the way, we do these all over the world. But if you can't make it to a free event, we also do free calls. So we actually have phone calls that we do with you. We have a whole system set up so you can get real in-person engagement and interaction, because otherwise you're just in spectator mode. So click the link below either to come to a free event or to get on a free call that we do. There's a lot of amazing resources in this link. Now, click it. Okay, it's one of those things where you can be passive about this and not do it. You're like, well, I didn't fall into that. Or you can actually click it and we can help you. So let's actually chat, meet in person, and learn more. Click the link below. See what's in there. I dare you to do it. Click that link. And in the meantime, what we're going to do, as you're clicking this, is we're going to talk to you about what it means to actually use that cleansed palette of your mind and of your energy that you built through years of release work to show up with other people from a more powerful place.
Yeah. Letting go is really what solves the emotional skills of socializing and connecting with people. Okay, a powerful exercise you can actually do is look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, do it after this video. Look at yourself in the mirror, look at yourself in the eyes, and just notice what you see. Do you see a brightness in the pupil? Do you see life radiating out? Do you see joy? Do you see fulfillment? Do you see expansion? Do you see authenticity? Do you even see yourself? Or do you see your eyes just kind of look beaten down, a little sad, kind of wavering, maybe even a little nervous, like, oh, I can't even look at myself in the eyes.
The kicked puppy eyes.
Right? Are you a beaten dog? Is that what you see? A sad, pathetic, beaten dog? Because that's what I see in most people. When I look at them in the eyes, I see a wounded person. Someone who's hurt, someone who's anxious, someone who's hiding. Very few people can maintain eye contact and even remain open. And then, from that foundation, what do people do? They try to improve themselves socially. They're like, well, as a sad, hurt, wounded person, what can I do?
Me and you have never done that.
We've never done that.
Yeah, we've never done that.
I mean, that's the classic route.
We're just speculating on what happens.
It's not like we can explain this because we relate and we've gone through that ourselves.
It's not like Julien went and did that and then created an international media incident.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, most people come into this because, yes, they're hurt, they're wounded. Okay, don't judge yourself over this. I'm saying do this exercise to become aware. But if you think that from that foundation, improving yourself socially, just a few little tips and tricks are going to fix that? No. You think a few little tips and tricks are going to cover that up? No. People will see right through it. Okay? Don't be so gullible. Don't be so naive. Human beings, even humans who are just terrible at, say, reading people, they'll still pick up on those little subtleties. Okay? Remember this. In terms of socializing, we used to socialize before words existed, right? We're pre-verbal beings. That's the foundation. That's what you first have to handle, and this is what letting go really does. It's how to let go of that hurt that's still running you, that anxiety that's still running you, that doubt, right? That beaten look, how to inject that life and ultimately reconnect with your authentic self, right? If you've seen people who might have not gone through the same experiences you did growing up, and for some reason they're just in that state already. They're smiling, they just connect, they laugh, and you're like, how are they just doing that so easily? How are they so natural about it? That's what letting go does, okay? And when it comes to social skills, if you think of it as this big umbrella, 80% of it is really the emotional skill side of things. That's what letting go solves, that's the foundation. But it doesn't stop there. That takes you 80% of the way. There's then the extra 20%, and that's the analytical side of things, the analytical skills, right? Where, yes, now you can radiate that life, you can smile, you can express yourself, that anxiety's gone, the stifledness is gone, but you still need to learn how to connect with people, how to make it win-win, how to be relatable, how to make sure that everyone you're talking to is having an amazing time and an enjoyable experience. And this is what people rush towards, right? Especially if you're someone who's a bit more logical. There's a lot of appeal to that analytical side. It's like, well, I'm gonna learn how to analyze situations and what I say and what the other person says, and I'm going to practice different things and see what happens and really be this social scientist, right? I'm gonna go out and get a lot of experiences, right? The more reference experiences, the better I'll be. But if you don't start with the emotional skills, it's not gonna help. Here's what's gonna happen, okay? Number one, when you go out...
He can't even fully say what's going to happen. Let's just say it's not going to be the ideal.
It's not going to be the ideal. Yeah. But for real, number one, here's what's going to happen. Until you're able to come from that solid foundation of authenticity, you're going to be hiding behind this front. You're going to be hiding behind these little tips and tricks, and the reference experiences that you will be getting will actually do more harm than good. Why? Because even if it does go well, it validates the front. And what do you keep telling yourself? I'm not good enough as I am. I have to put on this front. And although, yeah, it might suck at times if you get socially rejected. You know, it sucks more when you're only accepted when you're being someone you're not. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you're not going to see reality as it is. That hurt, that inner wound is going to hijack your focus, and you're going to project that onto people around you. And you're going to be calibrating and adapting and trying to connect with that when that's not even the person. Right? If you see someone and they might be the friendliest person, they're just waiting for someone to say hi to them, they're amazing, and you're just like, they seem scary. What would someone who's scary like? That's not calibrating to reality. And then the third one, and this is the big one, and this is just so sad, even if things go well, and let's just say that little front gets validated, and even though you don't see someone for who they are, it still goes well, you will most likely use that experience to not move yourself up, but to reinforce your comfort zone, where you might not even see it as going well, or if it does, you'll come up with an excuse where, well, okay, I guess they were nice to me, but it's because they were being polite. You'll never actually collect the win, and you will stay stuck in that little Groundhog's Day of socializing. Groundhog's Day, taking action and nothing truly changing. So what I found, we've both found, again, I've been teaching this for over 10 years, since 2010, working on myself since 2006, is that you need that foundation. Right? The 80% emotional skills. If you think of playing a video game, that's the first person perspective, right? You got to handle that. But then there's also the little map in the corner. That's the analytical skills. That's how to make it more relatable, to learn how to connect with people, to make sure it's a win-win. And you got to have both. But the map alone, hey, you can look at that map as much as you want. You're not going to do very well in the actual video game. So once you start letting go, you clear all that baggage, emotional foundation is down, then you must still learn the analytical skills because, hey, if you're being authentic but you don't know how to be relatable, that's also going to be pretty ugly.
Yeah, so this is the lead into level 2. Strap up and let's go. So I want to cut into this next section by talking about my own experiences at age 22, 23, 24, trying to get better with my social skills, getting better emotional intelligence, looking at how I was owning my space and showing up for the world. This was the biggest challenge of my life. Now, going into this, I had untold amounts of trauma. I can remember in high school having suicidal ideation, and I mean, it got to the point for me with suicide where my relationship to it was that I was so depressed and miserable, and don't do this, but I was so depressed and miserable that I almost felt like I was a coward for not ending it, because I actually wanted to, and I thought, well, yeah, but I'm too afraid to end it. And so I felt like I was wimping out. That was like how deranged and traumatized I was. Don't do that. My cousin's killed himself. Other people I know have committed suicide, several. Don't do that, ever, okay? It's just a perspective. But at the time, that's where I was coming from. That's how badly traumatized I was. And I was convinced that if people would just like me better, or if I had a better peer group or friend group or networking group or a better romantic partner, things like that, I believed that the pain would go away. And so I would fantasize, while being completely alone, what it would be like to be out with cool people, joking around, getting it. You know, I can remember just going to places where people were dancing, and I would stare at their feet and at their movement, and I couldn't even understand what they're doing. I struggled with things like sarcasm. I was somebody who was just so deeply trapped in my head that I walked around feeling completely judged. I came from a paradigm that you couldn't be cool, but rather that you were either, being cool was either something you had or something you didn't have. It was never something that you could do. But what maybe somehow, some way, you could learn a magic trick that, other people would then think that you're cool, and you could kind of almost like sneaking into some party that you're not supposed to be at. That was the paradigm that I was in. And I remember looking online for anything that would resonate at that time. Now, if you would have said to me at that period, hey, it's not about what you do, it's about who you are as a person, and it's about changing your own inner psychology to where you don't hate yourself, I wouldn't have understood that. I would have been like, how could you hate yourself? It's like, you're on your team, why would you hate yourself? Or what do you mean traumatized? Like, what do you mean carrying negative energy? I'm not carrying negative energy, I'm me. Like, I was so disconnected from my own psychology or the energy that was in my own body that I had no context for what that even was. So when I was working on social skills, one of the first things that I did was I would just work on just trying to meet new people. And what I thought was, maybe if I'd go online and somebody would tell me a good way to introduce myself, I could go do that and then sort of, kind of tiptoe around the fact that I was this total loser and, maybe put on some kind of wizard story of some form that would allow me to kind of circumvent that whole process that I wasn't cool, and that maybe people would just get captivated by a story that I'd memorized, or by some way of introducing myself that I'd learned online. That was the frame of mind that I was coming from. The challenge that I discovered was that in doing so, I would often have a failing experience because it came across as incongruent. But B, when I was successful and I started having some success, it was actually pretty cool. What that further did was reinforce to me that I was not lovable, but that I could put on a front that made me a lovable person. So what actually then happened, and this is sort of the next level to it, is that as you create this persona that you don't feel is you're constantly under threat. That persona is in this perpetuity of being under a threat. And so anybody that challenges it, you want to kind of clown them down and put them in their place. And so you walk around very, very uptight with this kind of ego structure that is sort of overlapped onto who you really are. It's this kind of superficial false self overlaid on top of your authentic self, but you don't know this. You're completely unaware. And that is always at risk. It's always looking for oxygen. And oxygen becomes further validation of this cooler person who you think you are. And unfortunately, what you're doing is that the more validation that self is getting, the more that you're depriving your authentic self, which I get that's a dubious term, but we'll just kind of go with it for now, but we'll build on it. You're depriving your authentic self of love, which is further suffocating it, which means that you further need that ongoing oxygen, and you're always in this threat. So we've called that in the past the competitive versus collaborative frame, and that is in part what we are referring to, is that you're constantly under this threat. And if you really start to know what you're looking for when you see this in other people, it's something that becomes very, very obvious. But if you don't know what it is that you're looking for, you're just completely clueless. Now, this is to where what Julien is talking about, which is that if you look at kind of step one as releasing what you have going on inside of yourself and beginning to heal internally, from trauma that you don't even know you have, from things that are buried in your psyche that you don't even know are running you like a puppet. And as you begin to clear that out, well, what then starts to happen is all this, like really what's been happening is it's like all this trauma, it's like you're kind of holding it down like a beach ball all the time, like this beach ball underwater. And you're kind of always holding it down. So that's burning all this mental capital. And what that beach ball is a feeling of ill ease in your body or dis-ease, things like that in your body. And it's like this constant refrigerator hum, just like say the crickets here, but the crickets are kind of a beautiful sound of nature. But this is like this ongoing low-level cortisol, low-level adrenaline that frankly even becomes an addiction, and you create this whole sub-universe to try to like justify it in your contracted little me world, and it's super crazy, and it really is like a low-level purgatory realm, not quite hell. I wouldn't take it that far, but it's like if you're in Dante's Inferno, it's like you're in like the upper realms of hell, not the lower realms, okay, if you could kind of follow me here. And what's crazy about it is that it's burning so much mental capital, and then what you do to try to get around it is you create this sort of self-image where it's like you're having to constantly justify in your mind why you're cool. Well, this person said this, and this person said that, but really they're wrong, and I'm right. And I'm justified. And this other thing, it really meant that I am cool. Okay, it's like severe wounding. You can actually see, by the way, that, I mean, this is sort of a side tangent, but so we'll say focus, but just briefly. This can even get handled to where you may become what's called a codependent or a narcissist, where somebody who's codependent tries to get around that by becoming the perfect person to get everybody's approval. And then somebody who becomes narcissistic, they handle that by just saying, I don't care about approval, they're all wrong, and I'm right. And this becomes these two different ways that wounds from childhood can actually begin to hit you due to this kind of traumatization that you go through. So you're seeing how the end consequence here is that you're going into learning social skills, looking for some kind of a magic pill, looking for a trick, and it doesn't mean that those are necessarily wrong, okay? Just because, you had a fun way to start a conversation or, you had a fun way of engaging with somebody, that doesn't mean that you're a trauma victim because you said something fun. It's not that at all, okay? It doesn't mean that you can't have something fun as a way to engage with somebody, and that now you suddenly if you're not traumatized, now you have to be boring and just
this can't be the foundation.
It can't be the foundation of it. It doesn't mean that now that I'm not traumatized, I'm just like, hello, what do you do? Where are you from? It's not that, but it can't be the foundation of it. So then what you wind up doing is as you begin to release this stuff, what you're going to find is, and here's the main key that I've experienced, you begin to alleviate a lot of this self-generated resistance. Let's just say this word together to hammer it to be like cheesy. Self-generated resistance. So I'm just doing anything I can to hammer that into you, because that is something that Drew and I talk about a lot, is where am I or him creating that self-generated resistance? Because what's happening is that you're in this paradigm where things have to be difficult, where you're under trauma, and then what you're doing is you're like, okay, well, people don't like me for me. And then you're kind of trapped in your head, and you've got these kind of little beady bug eyes, and in this scary world, at best you build this ego, and then you get shark eyes. So you start off with the beaten puppy eyes, or the bug person eyes, yeah. And then if you really, really build the supreme ego, you get dark shark eyes. This is what you're going to see, where it's like your eyes are in this transactional mode all the time, but instead of being weakened, you actually are kind of powerful, but the power is like the dark side of the force type vibes. And so what happens is you're like, I will have the power and the control, and it's like this very controlling eyes, which can lead to people becoming incredible CEOs and lead them to actually great financial victory. But then ironically, they're even further feeding that cycle. A lot of these people wind up offing themselves, and usually all the way up until their self-termination, they're like, I'm happy, and then in the end, just because it's like there's this superficial parasite personality structure living on top of their psyche, and in this constant threat. And by the way, if you even address that with them, they'll hate you and run away from you, because the psyche takes on a life of its own. It becomes parasitic. So if you even engage with them at that level, or even try to show them to be positive, or that the world could be easier, collaborative, there's a fear there, because it's an actual psychic energy, a parasitic thought form energy that in many ways is just as real as the blood and flesh of your body, because that energy is creating different thought forms that are manifesting and staying there as present above the thoughts. So even though you can't touch it, it's actually an energy form that is invisible, but that is very real and creates effects in the world. So it's like pretty crazy to think about. You'll see this when, say Julian or I do a video that's very, very positive, and maybe somebody's around who's deeply consumed by that parasite, and they'll start yelling at us like, shut up, like that, because the vibe is uplifting, and they don't want that because we're showing them that they can move out of that uplifting world. So, take that how you will, You're like, no, it's just because you guys suck. But, really, you'll see like many of the most people that are just very, very dark, they flip out from this stuff. And you'll even see this, these videos in the comments will attract a lot of very uplifting people, but, maybe 2-3% of the comments will be like super dark, deranged stuff. And then even in hearing this, they're so deep in that world that they're like, that's more of the trick. That's more of the trick. It's all the trick. And they feel like they may not be that important, but by feeling tricked, it gives them a sense of importance, like sense of significance they may lack in a super sad place to be. And there's not a lot that you can do to even help at that point. It's like they're almost so far gone. In fact, many reasons I studied personal growth was that one of my greatest fears is to be that far gone to where you're not even self-aware enough to know that you're doing it. And even if someone helps you, you're like, and it's just not a good place to be. And this video got pretty serious pretty quick. It's like demonic thought forms and, shark eyes and beaten puppy eyes. So, take it how you will, right? Another fun night, another fun Monday night in Dallas. So anyway, that's what you see happening. And going from there, now what you're doing is you try to bring in, the magic pills and the tricks and whatnot, but what you're doing is your vibe is a little off. So now what you need to do is you need to compensate against that self-generated resistance. And so by compensating against that self-generated resistance, it's like, well, you push the person off, but maybe you find a way to entertain them and maybe for them to want your validation, to pull them back through the self-generated resistance. And then what winds up happening is that you go even more and more into a dark world, because then you get to the point where as soon as you're not doing your little song and dance, they leave because you have those weird vibes. And so now you think the whole world just needs me to trick, because as soon as I stop, they leave. And it's a super self-reinforcing dark paradigm. And look, Julien is not saying that you can't work on improving socially prior to releasing. He's not going in an extreme way like that. But what he's saying is that it's the foundation that drives it to a high level, and that will help you to avoid these pitfalls, and that in the higher points, it can really take the work that you have done at maybe intermediate level, and it really brings it together for you to where the things that, can still work for you in spite of that self-generated resistance, all of a sudden, it just works much, much easier. And then you wind up kind of sprinkling that stuff in, but it's really not the driver of an engagement with another person. So you can, and it's really a beautiful experience to be able to be yourself and to be loved for you. Where does this go wrong? Again, when people take love for you as, well, then, hello, what's your name? Where are you from? And you're like, hey, could you have a little fun? Look, I'm not fun. And that's where it goes sideways. Yeah. So the way that I think about it as the real you is you, when you have emptied out the crap out of your energetic system, and now you're just tapped into source. You're beaming in positive energy, right? Because if you've got a cup filled with dirty water, you dump that out, you bring in positive energy, and that enlivens you. It makes you want to be more animated, want to be more playful, want to share. So I want you to think briefly about how when you're in a bad mood, what do you want to do? You want to share that bad mood, right? You ever done that? You ever have someone do that to you? You're in a bad mood or someone else in a bad mood, and they want to make everybody else in a bad mood. The most dark case of that are people that do horrifying acts, like super sad and horrifying and disgusting. So that's like the low version of that. Well, but as you tap in, you begin to want to share. And so rather than walking into a social environment feeling like the little me, you walk into a social environment feeling amazing and not wanting anything and feeling a sense of completeness. And it's that cup runneth over, inspired action, rather, action not from desperation, but inspiration, and you share that out, and that's when this becomes really fun. And it's so sad to see people who give up, and they think it sucks, and it's hard, and everyone sucks, and the whole world sucks, and it's all too hard, and they go into a very limited contraction, and they're sold on it, and they'll sit there all day, wasting copious amounts of time to reinforce that frame, because, and by the way, if you've ever seen it to where someone is consumed with all they want to talk about all day is limitation. They're consumed by it. Where's that coming from? It's a parasite on the mind. Because when you see how much time they're consumed to that, you're like, I get it that you have a different opinion. That's fine. Everyone should be entitled to a different opinion. But why are you sitting here all day consumed in limitation and like spending like 30 hours a week talking about the limitation? It's, you know, or even watching an empowering video if you don't even like it or believe in it. In my view, it's the parasite. Now, what they would say is, no, it's to spread the truth of the limitation. And that's empowering because they live in an inversion. They live in an inverted reality where, you know, embracing scarcity and victimology is empowering. It's like a satanic inversion, right? What is Satanism? It's like the inversion of all that is good. They're in an inverted reality where they gain power from victimology. They gain empowerment from being at the effect, not the cause. That's a really key one there. Don't sleep on that, by the way. The inversion is they feel empowerment from being at the effect. So they will have a philosophy of there's just nothing that you can do at all. Right? That's like the lowest. There's nothing you can do at all. And then like the next level up would be like, no, there's stuff you can do. But it's instead of being the lowest paradigm is the have or have not paradigm. It's called the having paradigm. Next one's the doing paradigm. Next one's the being paradigm. So the have or have not paradigm, that's like in the lowest. Like, you either have it or you don't. The next paradigm is the doing paradigm. You could do stuff. And then the next paradigm is the being paradigm. It's being loved for who you are. That's what Julien is trying to get across to you here. And if you can let this land, this can provide a very, very powerful foundation for you to build your skills upon, to build your social intelligence and EQ and how you're showing up upon. It can be that. You can make way more friends. But in addition, if you've been working on this, it's something that can really tie those threads together at a high level and really just bring you a lot of joy and take you from a hard world into a beautiful world. And that doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect and like the whole world loves you now. But what it means is that as you resonate in a higher vibration and you're coming from a collaborative frame, you will tend to bring other people like that into your life. And then you just get this cooler group of friends, and the energy that you share amongst your friends or the people who you're romantically involved with, the people who you work with, is a much more positive energy. And you know, you'll kind of get to the point where maybe you bring someone new in your life and they're really impressed with people who you work with and, you know, who you're dating and who you're friends with. And they're like, wow, you're around this team of all-stars and you seem really uplifting and I want to be part of that. And then even people a bit negative, but that are kind of teeter-tottering, will want to step up and live up to that. And then now you're bringing the best out of people and going into more of an upward spiral. So this is why we're trying to, like, we don't hammer this unless, like, you got to understand, you're talking decades and decades of combined experience here. I think people can forget that sometimes. They're like, well, what do they know? You know, it's like, okay, you're talking decades and decades of not just experience of us working on this for ourselves, but on teaching it in the most gritty, grimy, elbows in the mud possible environments. We've seen everything. I mean, I don't know what we haven't seen yet. Like, I hope there's something we haven't seen, but I feel like we've seen everything. Yeah, it's like a doctor. Like, we've seen it all. And you don't even have to be embarrassed talking to us. Like, we're like that doctor that's seen every weird lesion, and like, you're like, I don't want you to see my lesion. And we're like, I've seen 50 million of these. Like, you can show me. Like, it's okay. There's not even any condemnation here. Like, we've seen it. We've been there. So we want to help you. But understand that we see this. And sadly, and I think this is the sad point, is that because this paradigm is so far removed from most people's reality, there's really not a wide audience for it. But we're not making this video for a wide audience. This is a video for an elite audience. And this is a video for people who want feedback, who see a higher paradigm, who see a bigger possibility, and want change. That's what we're here for you. So get that in your head of self-generated resistance. And again, moving from the have or have not paradigm, doing to being, what releasing trauma could do for that, and how that clears all this mental bandwidth for higher levels of social awareness, higher levels of energetic attunement, higher levels of expression of energy flowing through you, how things get easier, and how this is in many ways the most advanced level of social awareness, social skills, emotional IQ, how you show up, and owning your space.
Yeah, this is really the deep, nuanced explanation of when you hear advice like, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, just be yourself. You could be like, well, I'm just the darkness, right, as he said. But here's the big problem with that, okay? The reason people hear this and use be yourself the wrong way, or don't even know what to do with it, is because they don't even know what it means or what it is to be themselves, right? They assume that who they are here today, like if I just tell you right now, be yourself, you're probably assuming, well, I'm just gonna be me then. But are you being yourself? Question that assumption. You here today, is that truly who you are? Or have you perhaps put on a fake front, right? Were you born this way? That's a question to reflect on. Were you born this way? If you're someone who's like very anxious or all these limitations are very negative, is that how you were born, right? Did you come out of your mother and like immediately negative and so on and so forth? No, you came out and again, you're this expansive energy, right? Can you imagine just like, so tight,
like
a little too tight.
Yes.
Right? It's like you were born that way. So you were born and then things happened to you, right? You went through this whole process of socialization. You experienced trauma. Every single human does, by the way. No one's immune to it. And you started suppressing and repressing parts of yourself. You started putting up these walls, right? These defensive mechanisms. And you've been acting this way and being this way for so long that it's all you know. It's like, well, of course this is me. No. Right now, what if this is you being fake? And you've just been faking it for so long, you've convinced yourself that's you. And that's really this whole process. You're born, you're this, again, expansive energy, then you contract. You self-impose this, by the way, by not letting go throughout your life. So you self-impose it, and then you try to battle it. You try to compensate for it, right? By putting on, for example, a certain front. And then there's always that fear of people seeing through you. There's the need for validation to keep the front alive. And you have to rely on all these tricks and tips to fight, ultimately, that resistance, right? And this is why
which you can use some for fun. Mm-hmm. It's not this mutually, like, it's not like, now you just are boring. It's not, it's just, where's it coming from?
Yes. And once more, it's like, it can't be the foundation, right? There's the steak and the spice. You can sprinkle that on, but the steak better be you getting back in touch with that expansive energy, right? With that carefreeness, that authenticity, with who you truly, truly are.
Did you also find as a new parent, seeing your daughter actually re-taught you that?
Yes. It reminds you, you're like, whoa, right? It's like just running around, just being free. It's like, again, no kid is just like immediately like that. That happens later on. And then
I think that's the role of children, is to reteach us how to rediscover that as we've lost it, around 30, and you're just like, oh, and then then you see this beautiful, innocent blank slate of your child, and then you're like, look what's happened to me. And then in playing with your child, it actually is nature's way of bringing you back to that.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy reminder of that authenticity. But once you get this too, you're going to start filtering information out there, and what you're going to notice, and this is the crazy part, is that most advice, right, especially when it comes to being yourself, connecting with people, socializing, it's not true success advice. It's anti-self-sabotage advice. Really let this land. You self-impose all this resistance, right? You're technically self-sabotaging, and then you need to use all these techniques, all this force to battle that, to fight the self-sabotage. What about just letting go of that self-sabotage and then thriving from there? That's success advice. It's let go of all that, and then you can polish that authenticity, right? Sure, you can polish, for example, how you tell stories, how you connect, right? That's the whole analytical skills, but the foundation better be authenticity. Until you're in touch with that, you're going to be occupying so much of your mental bandwidth, again, fighting against yourself, this self-sabotage, keeping stuff down, right? It's like, stuff it down, the concerns, put that aside, make yourself do it, make yourself say hi, make yourself talk. It's like, whoa, imagine none of that was going on. And you could just very, lock in, be present with someone, truly connect, and it's all just moving forward and thriving, right? Don't cope, thrive. And that's really what letting go does, okay? And if you're someone who's really used to this anti-self-sabotage, right, type of advice, it can be hard to let land because it sounds a little too good to be true, and you're so invested in that anti-self-sabotage. You're like, well, it can't be that simple. I've been doing so much. It's like, it is. It's simple, however, it is not easy to do.
It's nuanced.
Right?
Like, it's simple, but it's like, it's like as simple as, say, being just be present to the moment, right? It's simple, but the average person can't do it.
Yeah.
So because there's so much neurotic holding patterns.
Right? Same with this video here. You could even say just be yourself, but there are layers and layers to truly understanding what that means. But even zooming out and linking this to, a classic foundation of spirituality, right? What's saying in the whole spiritual realms, it's that, you come from the all, right? From the universe, the creator, whatever you want to call it, and you are the infinite, right? You're part of that. But then the ego forms and you start telling yourself, nope, I am not the all, I am me, right? I'm a separate entity. So you cut yourself off from that infinite source, and then you try to find the all, the infinite, out there. That's what we do. We are, again, authentic. We're like, no, right? Things happen to us. I'm now this being, this wounded, bug-eyed being. And then you try to refine that authenticity out there, right? Imagine right now I started just punching myself in the stomach. And then I'm like, any tips on how to feel better? I kind of feel like I feel pretty in pain right now. And you'd be like, well, it would help a positive attitude. Here's a meditation. Here's some, motivational videos. It'll help, right? Here's some medicine. Hey, what about just not punching yourself in the stomach? What about that? That's what we do. We self-impose all this stuff, and then we try to battle it. Stop self-imposing. Let go. Get that foundation, and then thrive from there.
Understand that the major sign that you're moving up is ease and flow. What you're doing is you're not self-generating all of that resistance. And so the entire paradigm that you're operating from changes. Imagine it's like you're a chick cracking out of an egg and you're kind of looking around and you're like, wow, I was in one paradigm in here and now I'm out here. And all of a sudden there's more ease and flow. So you want to almost think of it like a rocket ship, where the rocket ship is trying to get out of orbit and it's using all this energy to kind of get out of the gravitational pull. But then once it hits escape velocity, it can just shoot around a lot more easily. So it has to do stuff, but it's just easier. So you want to think of that ease and flow, that assumption of value rather than always trying to project value. That is a sign that you're moving up. And please, again, this is not mutually exclusive. You can still make an effort of how you're representing yourself. It's not, I think a lot of people can misinterpret this as like, just sit there like in this apathetic slug days. Like, wow, that's the best way I've ever heard. You sit there like an apathetic slug and things happen. It's not that. It's that in that being paradigm, what happens is that it puts up the antenna and attracts your natural energy flow to move through you. And then you're coming from a different space where ironically you're trying less and yet it's making more of an impact. I've taught public speaking for many years, and what I've seen is that when I'm training speakers, the newer speakers get very, very tense. And there's a space for that. There's some fun that you can have with getting tense for fun. We do that just for fun. Like you can actually make some fun energy with that. But it's one thing to make that fun and engaging and to kind of thread the needle and go ham. And it's another thing to where you're doing it compulsively, right? And the actual difference, by the way, it's subtle, is do you have a core groundedness and then you're choosing to actually do that, or is your groundedness actually out here? The sense of who you are is out here, and you're sort of chasing that. So and I'll try to demonstrate. It's kind of messing my mind up doing this, but one thing is like if you're grounded, you're like, hey, right? You're like, hey, we're gonna talk, right? That's where you're grounded and kind of getting tense for fun. And another one is when you're kind of almost needing responses to know who you are, and it's like, hey, we're gonna talk, right? And it's this kind of like, is that good enough? Please respond. It's that different. So that's what you'll see is as you're moving up, there's an ease and flow. And you'll see this new paradigm as you're sort of moving up on your journey that Julien is talking about here.
Yeah, there's still a lot of action, but it's very effortless action. And you can write this down too, right? Ego equals effort. Ego equals effort. And when you're in that paradigm, right, where again, like you're chasing it and it's very heavy, what you'll notice is that even with all the little tips and tricks, and as you think, I'm getting even a little bit better, because you might notice some progress, yes, but as you progress, it actually gets heavier. That's the tell. As you progress, even though you might be like, look, I'm doing better than before, it's actually still a very heavy experience.
Because you had more and more control.
Yeah, it's like more control.
More plates spinning.
Again, you're even more paranoid now. It's like, I can't even lose this. I need more. Am I still the person I was yesterday? And you got to ask yourself here, is that really what you're in this for, right? When, there was that spark of, hey, you know what? I kind of want to work on, getting in touch with myself and connecting with people, right? Like that's a beautiful part of life, connecting with people, talking to people, having those amazing social experiences, right? Everyone talks about like legacy in terms of business, impact, money. Well, what about social legacy, right? Truly connecting with people. Is that what you're in it for? To create this heavy experience for yourself where, again, it's all about these power plays of who stands where, I need the validation, and, don't see the real me, and it's just very heavy. It's like, is that what you're in this for? And what you have to realize here too is that if it isn't effortless, still a lot of action, but effortless. If it isn't fun,
Inspired action.
yeah, if it's not this
Rather than
inspired
desperate
action, and again, you're enjoying it and you're really having fun, you're gonna give up. Let that land. No normal person would just keep at this if it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And it can drive you insane, because you might even be looking at the surface and people might tell you like, hey, those are some pretty good results, right? You can get quite intermediate that way, but you actually won't even experience it that way. You'll be like, what do you mean? Like, it's not, like a part of you will be like, it's not as fun as it looks. This isn't the right way. And when you start shifting, suddenly it's like that weight's been lifted. You can actually put yourself out there. And actually another question to ask yourself here is, can you allow yourself to be seen, right? Because any quote unquote result, right, that you might get from putting on that front, right, from compensating, from acting out of desperation is only temporary, right? Because you'll know, hey, the longer I'm talking to this person, the longer I'm connecting with them, eventually they're going to start seeing through me, right? You can only maintain a front for so long. And there is that fear in a lot of people, right? Ask yourself, can you allow yourself to be seen? Can you allow someone, we talked about in the beginning of this video, right? Look at yourself in the mirror. Can you allow someone to actually look into your eyes? I know it sounds cheesy, but there is that classic saying, right? The eyes are the windows into someone's soul. It's very true. For a lot of people, they can't let it land. If someone starts looking into their eyes, they'll like look away, they'll laugh to deflect it, because they know I'm going to be found out.
Yeah, and in the darkest versions of this too, what I've seen is to where the person, like, you want to be a results-oriented person. I think that's super key. In fact, I think if anything, it's our commitment to results of why we're looking for that highest level paradigm to get the best results. So you want to be results oriented, but I've seen it where people that get consumed by this, and I felt this myself, and Julien's felt this himself, they get obsessed with broadcasting the results and finding ways to cut other people down to rationalize that they're on top, because there's not a core of knowing who they are. And so it gets to be in comparison and that ongoing maintenance of results. And then if at any point anybody questions them, they feel flexed on, and then they've got to attack back. And so it's a continual life in attack mode that's really at an intermediate level skill set and results, but that is just clasping to feeling like you're somebody that you're not. And at the highest level, if they can delude themselves enough and warp things, warping, reframe, get feedback, they can convince themselves that they're at the top, and then they can hold that eye contact like you said, but it's a shark eyes look. So it's not a soft glassy eye, but it's a very shark eye look of looking into a black hole, and they're actually being empowered by that, but they've had to distort reality, lose discernment, and in many ways often make really bad decisions. Like, another one could be, say, alcohol, where you're using too much alcohol, not just like, a glass of wine, for dinner, but like we're talking, you're using alcohol regularly to be anchored into that state rather than just being there naturally and collaboratively, like what it is that we're saying here.
Yeah. So really look for, once more, is it heavy? Is it light? Right? Are you grounded or are you reactive? Do you feel comfortable being seen, putting yourself out there, or are you putting this front? Are you acting out of inspiration or desperation? Right? Do people sense something's a little bit off, a little bit frenetic? Right? Are you in your head or outside of your head? Those are some things to audit.
Are you trying to keep a parasite alive?
Yeah, are you feeding that little parasite like, here's some more validation. Here, look at these results. Or are you actually doing it for you? And with that enjoyment too, you have to ask yourself, right, although you might be getting results, are you enjoying those results? Are those the right results? No one really asks themselves that. Hey, if you're not enjoying them, those are not results. Okay, so this is really the shift that you're gonna notice as you start letting go. And once more, this doesn't take away from action. It doesn't take away from the fact that, hey, you can polish, for example, your communication skills, of course, but you need that foundation, that authentic raw material to make something of it. Otherwise, you're just going to be crafting a front, and instead of being what we call a social master, you will be a social scammer.
Now, what you've seen here, this is a lot. This is a lot. A lot to take in. It's like drinking water out of a fire hose. And understand that there's two main reasons that we're willing to present this much information to you. Number one is we believe in you. You can and you will do this. That's number one. Number two, there's a lot of resources that you have literally in the link below that can help you. I think we'll wrap with that. What are the resources in the link below?
When you click the link below, you'll be able to book a free coaching call. And on this call, guess what? We'll be able to go over your exact situation, what you're struggling with, your sticking points, and we'll be able to direct you in the best direction moving forward. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to spend years trying to figure all of this out. Like, well, how exactly do I let go and focus on the emotional skills and rediscover my core and the authenticity? It can sound very overwhelming. And it is if you try to do it alone. Trust me. We've been working on this for a very long time. I've personally been working on myself since 2006 and coaching since 2010. We've seen it all. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to take a lot of time as long as you have the right guidance and the right resources. And guess what? That's all in the free call below this video. There's no excuse. It's completely free. Just click it, get the feedback, start moving in the right direction. You know what to do.
Enjoy it. We built this for you. Click it. Enjoy. And thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Until next time.
And believe in you.
Like, this program is such a game changer. The way everything's structured and the material, it's been already, even for me, it's just been, I'm noticing a crazy change in the way that my whole life's like playing out.
What you put together is just incredible. There's nothing like that.
I've just jumped like a million levels. It's just been a complete 180 for my experience of existing. That's awesome.
It's just been so huge in terms of so many of the things I'm finally understanding and realizing and epiphanies I'm having.
What you do is a huge inspiration to me, and I think it's one of the most beautiful things you can give to another human in this entire world.
You saved my life, man. I'm telling you, this is real, man.
Sometimes all it takes is just one person who believes in you. Find people who are where you are in life and model them, work with them. I would not be here if I didn't have people who held me accountable.
Wow. I just felt a click and things are changing.
This program was just top notch.
Seriously, like, this is a masterpiece. This is perfect.
Everything, the way it's set up, the live calls, like all the support from the coaches is incredible.
It's been nuts.
I just had my tears of joy.
This was the best decisions I ever made.
Thank you for creating something wonderful like this.
This program was phenomenal.
This program was amazing.
This program has definitely changed my life.
I know for a fact I'm in the right place.
This is exactly what I was expecting from the program.
It's been spectacular.
I feel really lucky to have found you.
Thank you so much, Julien. It's worth every dollar.